Hey, it's Dr. J, and welcome to Business Tips. Now, business tips, not sales and business tips, because today I've got a special guest. Now, I've been hounding Andrew Davis for probably 2 or 3 months now to try to get him on, because I've been working with Andrew, gee whiz, for over a decade. He's the man that looks after us and all things internet, and also computers and other things too. Without Andrew's help over the last 10 years, I don't know where I would be. He's always come to the rescue. His company's been outstanding, and he's always had a protection model, which I thought has been second to none. And I thought it would be a really good idea, given the circumstances that we're in now. We're going online on a regular basis. It's probably all day, every day, and just get some feedback on some of the things to protect ourselves, to reduce risk, and some things you can do at a few little click of the buttons can really make sure you become safe. So welcome, Andrew. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Look, I'd love you to give the people and our tribe a little bit of background about how you got involved in IT. And your company is Apex Host. It's been going for quite some time now. And could you give our listeners a little bit of insight on how you got into IT and how you created your company and what you actually do?
How I got into IT, that was 30 years ago.
Well, I'm sure you got a good memory.
How I got into IT, I mean, like a lot of people, in the 90s, early 90s even, I was in a technology family. My dad ran an inventory management software company. So computers were always around. It wasn't an unusual thing for us. When people say, when did you start using email? Well, year 4 at school, which was 92-ish. I'd have to go and look at the dates, but that was very early on. The internet really started in 94. We were already connected and running mid 94 at our house. I've been doing this for a few years. So it's actually a bit scary when you look back at it in that respect.
I mean, but some people can always remember when they started using internet and when they started to use a computer. I can remember when there was no internet and I thought a fax was actually pretty nifty. So we're from a different a genre, and all the young people now wouldn't know a world without Google or a happy phone and all the things. So
I employed someone 3 months ago, and he was born after the internet became a thing. He was born this century. And he's never had a moment where he hasn't had a mobile phone in his hand that's been very well connected. Whereas, you can remember mobile phones before they had data, when they were just phones.
I remember when they were a brick.
Yeah, I still remember my first one.
A car.
I still remember taking a mobile phone call in '99 on a train, a Sydney train, and thinking, I'm the only person in this carriage with a mobile phone. It was embarrassing, was not the right word, but it was very unusual to have a phone.
Well, Siva, you've actually pretty much grown up with your parents and everybody. It's interesting. A lot of people now have been forced into that internet regime. There's nobody that doesn't have an email account and so forth. So, you've lived it all your life. And I must say, every time I ask you a question about anything, and I'm very 101 when it comes to it, I'm absolutely blown away with the type of information you give us, and also help, because, I never be able to learn how much you've actually forgotten, get to know what you know now. And things just change so dramatically all the time. And when it comes down to IT, your services, and you do everything online, just give the listeners, what are some of the things that you do?
Anything from managing existing IT. So if someone's got, internet connectivity in their office with 4 or 5 machines, computers, we'll help them manage those and secure those, all the way through to the operational side of things in the data centers, where we're running the actual servers that are putting those websites out there, and even Office 365 or Google G Suite. We'll manage that for customers who don't have that understanding or that knowledge. You don't need to know how to set up a mail server or connect everything to Office 365, we can handle all that for you and make it as easy as possible. So
You certainly do. And look, there's other things that you've actually done for us. You've got a full phone system in place. So you've got everything through the internet. You had all of the modems put up. You also go online and fix our problems, which we come up with regularly, and also supplying hardware as well, and programs. So, pretty much, as you said, you do everything online, but also in IT as well. So I want to do a deep dive today, mate, with some of the things that are going to happen. And we were just talking about this a couple of times over the last few months. And one of the things that I've seen dramatically, and you were just talking about the other day, there's been a massive change in the way we do business and the way we actually are accessing our computers and being online. So I'd love you to start with, what are some of the two biggest changes you've seen in the last, say, 12 months that people maybe need to be aware of?
In the last 12 months, I mean, we could probably say in the last 3 months.
Okay, well, 3 months, because everything. Oh, that's right. It's computers; they change overnight.
Well, I'm thinking more about the current climate. There's been a very, very large and very quick shift to don't come to the office anymore, please. That's not a big change in your business because your team is fairly well dispersed already. It's not a big change for my team. My team is well dispersed as well, but we run an online business, so being online is not a big difference. But imagine an organization like a gym, for example, where they're not allowed to go and sit at a desk in an office to make sales calls. They're doing that from home, and that sudden change has been forced upon us. There wasn't any preparing for it. I'm reading articles that people who were prepared for it were saying, our preparedness plan missed the fact that, yes, there's a computer for someone to use at home for this, but they forgot the fact that there's two people who share that computer in that house. So, things like that have been pushed upon us without, this hasn't happened before. And businesses are learning that, yes, we can work from home, and it is an excellent way to do business. This Zoom call is, you're in the CBD, Sydney, aren't you?
That's right.
And I'm in Barrel. It's 200 kilometres away. We could be sitting face to face in an office in the city if we wanted, but I'd have a 4-hour commute for a phone call. So all of these things.
With that in mind, then, what do you think some people need to be aware of, given that that's remote servicing and remote, a lot of people are trying to service online? What are some of the things that they need to get ready to be able to be proficient? Now, the customers and consumers initially will be forgiving when it comes to making a few dropouts and all the other bits and pieces, things. I mean, that'll be forgiving. But as you know, you live in this world, and I'm finding it quite quickly, it is unforgiving when you're doing a sales presentation or you're ill prepared. So what are some of the things that you recommend that, given that it's going to be the new normal, that people should be doing?
The new normal is going to be, mobile devices are going to be far more prevalent. Desktop computers are great, but you can't take them with you. They stay where they are. So you either have to have two, one at home and one in the office, or you're going to get a much more a more powerful notebook. You're sitting on your notebook. I think I spec'd that one out for you from memory. And that's your everyday computer. You don't have anything else. You can see in the background here, I have a computer on my desk and I'm talking on my notebook, and I've chosen to use my notebook because it has a better camera for this call. I use two computers all the time. And it means that when I pick up and walk out, I can take my notebook with me to wherever I go. If that is sitting on the couch in my lounge room, hanging out with my kids, I can still do work in that environment, but I can't take a call like this. So, I need to be able to come to a space where I can have a call and sit quietly and do that work. And everybody will suddenly realize that, maybe they don't have that spot in their house. If kids, for example, for the next 3 months aren't going to school, and that's still up in the air, how are you going to continue to run your business in an environment where, your kids are also trying to sit there and have a call like this with their teacher.
Given that that's that shift taking place, so you're recommending that a household will have, or a person that's working needs to have their very own computer and not have a shared one. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right. Well, if you were sitting in an office environment 6 months ago, you didn't share a computer with the person in the cubicle next to you. Why would you do that at home?
So that's something that we don't even think about. I'm going to go home. I'm going to use the computer at home, and so forth. And we don't have two. But for people that do have their home computer and their laptop, what are some things that they should be updating? Maybe sure a little bit more savvy about that. The unsavvy person that's just using a computer that's now having to be on it 24/7. What are some of the things they need to be wary or vigilant or cautious about?
So obviously there's the security side of things. Computers in businesses generally are maintained by somebody, whereas computers at home, bring your own device sort of style computers, there's very little maintenance on them. There's very little management being done. So, what I find regularly is a customer will say, "Oh, can I use this computer?" And I think this happened with you maybe 10 years ago. We logged into might have been Darren's computer, and it hadn't had an update done in 10 years, or possibly ever. And
oh, you're absolutely right, and that happens quite regularly. So, for those people that don't know what maintenance is, what's the definition of maintenance?
From our point of view, it's the regular tasks that need to be done, preferably without you knowing that they're being done. So that's if you're using Windows, Windows releases updates on the second Tuesday of every month. And I think in my memory, there's been 1 month where they didn't release an update. Now, those updates on that regular day are typically considered non-critical. So they can be done in a period of time, a week, let's call it. If they release updates outside of that schedule, those are critical updates and they need to be done on the day.
And what's the reason that those updates should be done?
Some of it is feature improvements. So if the piece of software that you're using, let's call it Windows because it's a good example because they have a lot of updates. There are feature changes that happen through time where, the industry is moving. And by industry, I mean, IT in general, people want to do more and more and more. Those features have to be added in and they're done through those updates. But then there's also security updates that happen. So, non-critical updates might be, for example, the encryption that's used to talk to websites like your bank. If a vulnerability is found in that encryption, it takes time for everybody to update. So our operation running web servers in data centers, we would be on top of that much more promptly than most computers. The last big security vulnerability in that respect, Google gave 18 months notice before they were going to start blocking access to the insecure certificates. So from a service point of view, I had 18 months to deal with getting that done with. And within 18 months, most people have updated their browser at least once to get those changes. But not doing those updates, then you'll suddenly start seeing that encryption is not working.
So let's just go back to that statement you just made, updating their browser. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
So everything has updates, and you'll get a notification on your phone saying that the phone has new software ready to download. Your browser is no different.
Your browser's on that's your Google or your Safari and so forth. Is that
correct?
Right?
Yeah, Safari is the one built into Mac. You can download it for Windows if you feel keen. Chrome, Firefox will run on anything, and they're the biggest two out there at the moment.
Which browser do you think is the best one for people to use?
There's a lot of personal preference. I've tried very hard for the last 6 months to use Safari. I use a Mac exclusively as my desktop computers. It was fine. Changing from Chrome to Safari didn't really cause that much of a hassle. There was a few little things. I had to change because of a problem I was solving in our business that wouldn't work in Chrome. I've now fixed that problem, so I've gone back to Chrome in the last couple of weeks. It doesn't really make a difference. They're all very similar in that
So when
respect.
you get a thing that needs to have an extension, so to speak, and they say this is your Chrome plugin, is
Yep.
there also a Safari plugin?
Often there is, but sometimes there is not. Yeah, we were talking a few weeks ago about the password manager program. Now, the plugin for Chrome, there's actually the one that I use. There's two plugins, and you can choose which one works better for you. In Safari, there's only one plugin, and that's the one you have to use. One of my reasons for switching browsers last week was that they did an update and the plugin doesn't work anymore.
So with the for our listeners that don't know what we're talking about, in a Google, which is where you type in your searches, that's called a browser. And then when you actually again get some applications and so forth that you want in your computer, like a program, to actually get them to work, it sometimes needs something that's called a plugin that goes into Google, and then it allows it to work. And when those things aren't installed, then the computer doesn't talk to that piece of software.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, let's move to actually what you just talked about, and it's password security. Now, there's lots of ways to actually put a password, but most people forget their passwords all the time. And they'll then say, I'm just going to use the same password for everything so I don't get, how can we say, locked out of my programs and so on. So they'll just type it over and over again. Now, you actually say that's an absolute faux pas, even if it's a long, intricate password. But if you use it over and over again, you call it being compromised. Could you tell our listeners what that means?
I'll send you a link that you can put up, a little comic that you can add into this video that'll it'll make more sense what I'm trying to explain. So complicated passwords, let's say 10 characters long, and they have a capital letter and a number and a symbol and some other combination of, something that you can't easily remember, is actually incredibly simple for a computer to break. There are files that you can download that contain basically the hashes of every password 8 characters long. So if your password's 8 characters long, we don't have to break it anymore. We can just go and download them. And there are websites, and again, I'll send you this link where you can type your email address in, and it will tell you if your password has been compromised and on what date.
And what does compromised mean?
So the best way of thinking about it is, if you're using one password for multiple different logins. So let's take your email account, Facebook, and a website that sells candles. And I'm using that just as an example because there are websites out there that only sell candles, surprisingly. Now, if you're using the same password on all 3 websites, the likelihood of your Facebook password being compromised through a security problem at Facebook is not impossible, but remote. But the website that sells the candles, their website might be compromised.
And when you say compromise, what does that mean?
Well, let's say that there's a vulnerability in the software that runs that website, and a hacker gets in and takes a copy of the database. In that database is a list of every customer. That customer database contains email address, date of birth, possibly a credit card number, and a password. Now, the password is possibly encrypted. It should be encrypted, but it might not be. Now, if it isn't, then they've just got the password in plain text. If the password is encrypted, that hash, the way the encryption works, the result is not, you can't decrypt it back to what the password was, but if you've got a list of all of the passwords ever made, you can just look it up in a table very quickly. Now, the challenge becomes, okay, the candle website has been compromised, but it's the same password that's being used on Facebook and your email address, your email account. So they can go and just log into that one now.
So they'll just take your name and say, oh, let's find out if he's got an email, a Facebook account. Click, let's type in that password because that was from his candle.
And see if that works.
Same, I can then assume your identity, so to speak.
Yeah. So, if someone took over my Facebook account, I wouldn't even notice. I haven't logged into it for 7 or 8 years because I value my privacy slightly more than most. But my email address, on the other hand, my Gmail account, that would be a big problem, very big problem, because you use your email address to reset all of your other account passwords. You know, if you forget your password and you click the link that says forgotten password, they send you an email saying, here's how you get a new password. So if someone logs into your email now, they've got access to everything else. It's a challenge around how to deal with that problem, because even your bank will verify your identity through your email address in some circumstances.
So the way to fix this, now obviously this is obviously an important conversation. If we have not to, well, this, I would assume, and you're the expert here, that you should never use a password twice, and have other ways of remembering them. And I know you've talked about some programs. I know you've talked about dual passwords. Why don't you explain that a little bit to our listeners?
So remembering passwords is where the big problem starts, because, and I've given you this example in the past, the program I use to store passwords for myself, I have 2,500 passwords stored in there, and they're all different. Nobody can, or I certainly can't remember that many passwords. So the program that I use is called 1Password. There are at least 5 or 6 other very good password managers out there, including one that's built into every Mac and one that's built into Windows. They're all good, and they all vary in price. But the general concept of all of them is you have to have a password to unlock the password database, and then the password database contains all of your other passwords. Now, they can be 50 characters long, made up as complicated as you want, because you never need to actually remember them or even type them in. Out of that 2,500 passwords that I have, there are 4 of them that are easy enough for me to type if I have to type them, because there are situations where I need to log into a device in a data center that only has access, limited access to get to it, and I can't get my password manager onto that device, and I can get to that password on my phone and type it in 1 character at a time, but they're still 35 characters long. So most people are just going to go to a login form on a page, click the button in their browser that says fill my password in please, and never actually see the password. And then, depending on the program that you're using, they can monitor websites that will tell you if that password has been compromised. So if Candle Store has been compromised, the password that affects Candle Store will happily allow you to just go and change the password, and no other sites are affected. And that notification comes through your browser. Okay,
so I started getting this sorted out a little while ago, because you told me to. I use a program called Dashlane on one application. It's free. If you want to have it on multiple, you just have to pay a few dollars. They're not expensive. But when you actually told me to do it, Andrew, and I'll just tell the listeners, when I went onto it, and I know you know what we can say, I don't have thousands of passwords, but I have a fair few. It came back and it said 53 are more than likely compromised. In other words, their sites, because they were duplicated, I'd used the same one. They said, you've got to change these. And all I did was to say, change password. And it just says, click, it goes to the website, and then it just changed it forward. And I must say, I don't know what they are anymore. I just checked the other day, and it was about, I got a little, something in my email popped up that said that there had been something that happened to a company that had lots of emails. He said, please change your password on these 2 accounts. So I just pushed the button. Now that's just one verification password. I remember you showing me a little doohickey that you had that actually changed the password every like 10 seconds. Could you tell everyone about this a dual password process that you use?
This is the one that ANZ. Oh, hang on, where's my camera? That ANZ sends, and that generates a. It's not random, but it generates a number that identifies that I'm holding this device. Now, this is not my ANZ one, by the way. It's a spare. The banks use them because having a physical token identifies me without my password. And they still use the password. So you would log in just normally with your customer ID and your password. And then I think with ANZ, they ask for this token only if I try to transfer money out. And only above a certain value. You know, if it's $100, you don't have to stress about it. And what that is doing is identifying that I am currently in possession of this token and my password. So it's called two-factor authentication. And you should have that enabled on anything that allows it to be enabled.
Okay, I just said that again to everyone. It's two-factor. What was it? Identification. So what was it?
Authentication.
Authentication, two-factor authentication. So you type it in, and then there'll be another thing that's got to come up on your mobile phone that you then type in that it's okay, or a code that gets sent through. Is that right?
Yeah, so a lot of people may have seen, particularly if they deal with the government, for example, the government sends a text message to say, please enter this number. Well, that's the same sort of thing. They're confirming that you are who you are by verifying it through another means, and that in that case it's sending you a text message. There are some challenges around the text messaging concept because there's evidence now that they can be intercepted, which sort of defeats the purpose. But that's where the physical tokens can't be intercepted. You know, if this is stolen, I can deactivate it, or if I lose it, I can deactivate it, but nobody can get that.
So when you go online to type that password into the ANZ Bank, they'll then say, all right, click, and then you'll get another little code or something in there to say that you then type it in because it's come directly into the token. Is that right?
It doesn't come into the token. The token is generating those numbers all the time.
Right.
But they don't last for more than 30 seconds.
All right, so it's changing all the time. You don't get the same one.
No. So when they ask me for the token number, the bank knows what the number should be. And I type that number in, and if it's the same, then they're good. And like I said, with other software, Google has their own that's similar to these, where you can use an app on your phone to generate the numbers.
So what should the average person now that's spending so much time at home do to become, let's say, reduce the risk and become safe? What's two things that you would say that they need to do, like right now after they listen to this interview?
Secure your passwords. That's priority number one at the moment.
So that was one password. That's one application, and I use a
Dashlane. There's another one that I've started looking at recently called Bitwarden. That looks fantastic. Like it's an open source free application that anybody can download and use. I haven't investigated it enough. As you are well aware, I've had a big project on. I've been a little bit preoccupied. But those three are probably the best three out there.
So that's one password, Dashlane, and what was it?
Bitwarden.
Bitwarden. Okay, terrific. So, hey guys, let's write this stuff down. This is stuff you got to do right now, not tomorrow, next day, because we need to make sure you're safe. Andrew, yes or no? Is there going to be a cyber problem in the next, say, 3 to 6 months, given that everybody is now online?
I mean, everybody's been online anyway. It's the way that we're using that. You know, people are not sitting behind corporate firewalls. They're sitting behind $90 home routers that aren't as secure. You know, the password thing. You know, quite often we find that the router's password at somebody's house is admin. You know, when I ask somebody what's the password to your router so I can log in and make a change, and they say, I don't know, I don't bother querying it anymore. I try the 3 default passwords that Netgear uses and log in. 90% of the time I get straight in. Now that's not a huge security risk for someone from the outside coming in, but if their computer itself is the problem, they're on the inside of the network and they can do, you know, whatever they want from that point. So securing your passwords, securing your computers is going to be a big focus for IT departments worldwide.
When you say securing your computers, what does that mean?
Confirming that you've got, you know, if you're running Windows, a valid virus protector or malware prevention.
Okay, well, there you go. This is just a thing I'll wrap up on. malwares. You know, I had a big problem with that and all that bits and pieces a while ago, and it just went in and attacked my Chrome stuff, and it was I have a Mac. Who would have thought? You know, they're supposed to be impregnable, but you guys told me to get malware bytes. There's lots of other type of security that should be on your computer, and it gets scanned every time I turn it on. It just scans in it. I actually got a virus downloading an itinerary for an airplane when we could fly. So we should actually get a protection and update it regularly. What are 2 or 3 that people should use?
If you've got infections already, Malwarebytes is probably the best to get rid of them. And moving forward, you know, it does live protection of new infections, and it is probably one of the better ones out there. If you've got
by the way, I've actually got it, and it's not expensive. It's and it just gets updated all the time, and it's easy to use. It's terrific. I must when you guys put me onto it, just put it in there. It costs a few bucks. It's not expensive.
No, exactly, and it's quite surprising. Even if you think your computer is all good and clean, it's pretty surprising what it finds. So there's usually some interesting things in there. So from that point of view, it's probably one of the better ones. It's certainly what we're using at the moment. If you're looking for a more a bigger name or a bigger brand, Norton is probably the one to look at.
Okay, so Norton and Malwarebytes. So download it and keep it updated. And I remember something you also told me just before we wrap it up. Always update your system software, because it also has firewalls and so forth to stop things from coming in. Look, as you know, and you've sorted me out now, I was notorious on not updating my system software because I didn't want to get new programs. When I updated the system software, I had to go and get new programs.
Yeah,
but that's one of the reasons.
The changes that happen if you do the updates regularly are small and incremental. But in your case, you know, you hadn't done an update in 3 years, and everything changes. You know, it's not a small change; it's a very large change, and that scared you, and it scares a lot of people. You know, my mum in particular. But it got to the point, you know, using my mum as the example, where I can't help you unless you do these updates. It's the problem that you've got is caused by not having the updated software.
So there's a big rock, guys. We've got to make sure you keep your system software up to speed.
Yeah, and regularly and often, and you know, when it comes up with a little prompt in the top corner there saying you've got an update to do, don't leave it till tomorrow. Do it tonight. Do it as you go to bed.
So if we were to actually get everything sorted, and just to summarize, we should have more than one computer, making sure that we don't have...
Or at least enough computers per people. There's no point having a house of 4 people and trying to share two computers or an iPad and a computer. So it's just not going to work long term.
We've also got to make sure that we have our systems updated, have some protection on there, and for goodness sake, straight away, get one of those 3 password programs to keep your passwords safe. Is that right?
That would be my first 3 things to look at. That's certainly what we look at first with new clients.
Well, look, guys, I want you to take action on this. Get your pen out, write that stuff down. Now, Andrew, you were saying that there's a lot of people that are probably going to be vulnerable over this period of time. And you very generously said that they can maybe get a cyber health check. Is that right?
Yeah, we're more than happy to do a run through and give people an idea of what things look like from that perspective. You know, they can call the help desk, and they're already alerted that people might be calling in the near future, and we'll run through and give people an idea of what position they're in and what sort of challenges they might face moving forward.
Oh, terrific. So I'll get them to just, hey guys, mention that you've seen this on the interview, either in the Sales Authority Club or on my LinkedIn or in the Sales Success Club. All right. So just mention it so you can actually get a cyber health check. And how can people get in contact with you and your the Apex Host team? What's the best way of contacting you and get a little bit of your wisdom? I know you're not working 22 hours a day now, so we'll be able to get hold of you. Now you've got a bit of sleep done.
Now that I've had at least one night's sleep this year, I have had a brutal 3 months, as you're well aware. So
Yes, well, you've actually, and it's all done and dusted. It was like almost a celebration yesterday. So
it was. So in terms of getting in contact, business hours, our 1300 number is the best number to get through because you'll come through to the help desk.
what's the 1300? Nice and slowly, mate.
1300 138 046.
That's 1300 138 046.
Yep.
Terrific. And
then if it's after hours or if it's something that's really urgent, we've got a live chat on the website that's monitored as best we can 24 hours a day. So somebody can hit us up on that, and we can either call you back or quite often just deal with it directly on the chat. And if it's after hours and you call the 1300 number, it goes to voicemail, but we do monitor that. So again, if it's an urgent issue or a critical problem, we'll call you straight away.
Terrific. Well, thanks, Andrew, so much for your time, mate. And as usual, we could talk about this for hours. You've just got so much knowledge. I really appreciate it, mate.
Excellent. Lovely chat.
How good is he? I have sometimes had some issues with my computer. Look, I must say that Apex Host has been outstanding. We've worked with them for over a decade, and go onto the computer, they fix things up. Andrew and his team's always gone out of their way to help us. So get that cyber health check and take some action on those passwords. Get your protection in place and update your system. You've had an expert tell you, now it's time for you to take action, because if you're going to be working from home for a little while, or you're getting more involved with the internet, it seems to be we've been forced upon us because we've already been on the internet. Now we're doing it more at home. It's time to get safe. All right, gang. So make sure you take some action. Get some comments in there. I will put the link for Andrew, and we'll see you when you're a little bit older. I'm Dr. J. Bye for now.